Yo, what's going on guys? Arekkz here, welcome back to another video for Pokemon Sun and Moon. It's been a while since my last one, but today a brand new trailer dropped and it contains so much information. It's 5 minutes long, it's packed full of things like new and returning Pokemon, information on the Alola region including trials, leaders and much more, plus a new mechanic known as Z-Moves, also Poke Rides, and so much more stuff. There is literally a ton of stuff to talk about. I've got all the information you guys could possibly need to know, so in this video we're going to break it all down. Of course in the background is the trailer running, but if you guys do want to see it for yourself without me speaking over the top, then I'll also leave a link to the trailer in the description box down below. And as always, if any of you guys are trying to keep this as fresh as possible and you don't really want to spoil anything, then I would recommend you look away now because we are going to be talking about everything. So let's start off by talking about the Alola region. Now the Alola region is a group of tropical islands. There are 4 nature-filled islands and there's 1 man-made island in the middle, and the Alola region is known as a resort that kind of attracts tourists from all over the world. Alola is also surrounded by the sea and it's got a diverse ecology made up of loads of different Pokemon that are native to the region, along with Pokemon that have more recently arrived in Alola from other regions. Plus it's said that in Alola, humans and Pokemons coexist in like a really close relationship, kind of different to sort of how they have done in the past. So it's definitely different to other regions. But one aspect of the Alola culture is this thing called the Island Challenge. Basically it's a rite that involves travelling through each of the 4 islands, and this helps young people grow into Pokemon trainers. Obviously, as a main character and someone as part of the Alola region, we are destined to attempt this trial and attempt this Island Challenge. And to complete the Island Challenge, you have to overcome trials on each of the 4 islands, and these trials are not limited to battling with Pokemon. Some of them take on a variety of different forms, including completing tests of knowledge and different things like that. So I guess in that respect, it's kind of introducing sort of more RPG elements to the game, maybe a light quest system, so to speak. But at the end of each trial, you're faced with a mighty Pokemon known as a Totem Pokemon. Totem Pokemon are basically a much larger version of an existing Pokemon. Its body is enveloped in a special aura, and when Totem Pokemon battle, they also summon an ally Pokemon to join them alongside them. So with the support of their allies, then Totem Pokemon actually become a lot more powerful. Plus, Pokemon other than Totem Pokemon can also call on allies to aid them as well. So you might end up kind of starting out a battle and then it might turn into a double battle. The final trial on each island is also called the Grand Trial, where Pokemon battle against the Kahuna, and the Kahuna is basically the leader of that island. So in that respect, I don't know whether this is supposed to, say, replace gyms, or whether this is sort of like a new way of presenting gyms to the player. Basically, if a trial goer succeeds in clearing this Grand Trial, they will then be publicly recognised as having cleared all the island's trials, and then they can move on to the next island. So kind of like getting a badge in a gym. But each of the trials has a captain, and their role is to provide guidance to the people sort of undergoing the trials. And all of the captains are trainers who basically undertook trials in their own Island Challenge several years earlier. And in the trailer, we actually get to meet a few of these captains. You have Lana, who is an expert with water-type Pokemon. She is dedicated to her family and is a reliable older sister who watches over her younger sister. You have Captain Mallow, who is an expert with grass-type Pokemon. Apparently she loves cooking, but it also seems that sometimes her taste is a bit particular. You then have probably my favourite one, he looks super cool. You have Captain Sophocles, who specialises in electric-type Pokemon. He's also good with mechanics and has invented various different machines. And you also have Captain Kiawe. Apologies if I messed up the pronunciation, but his expertise is in fire-type Pokemon, and together with his Marowak, he studies the traditional dances that have been passed down in the Alola region. But, as mentioned, each of the 4 Alola islands also has a leader known as a Kahuna, and they are basically a leader that governs the island. They're also chosen by the Pokemon known as Guardian Deities, which are also found on each island. And Harlot is the Kahuna of the Mele Mele Island, which is also where we, as the main character, have moved to, and that's where we're going to start our game. But he is also the rival to Howl's grandfather. Howl's skill is said to be recognised in the Alola region, but he also gives us our first Pokemon and of course expects great things from us. So he's kind of like our starting professor, and that's where we'll of course get our starter Pokemon from. So that is a bit of backstory around the island, the trials, and the captains and the Kahunas. However, there is still a lot more stuff to talk about. So now let's move over to quite possibly the most hype thing in the trailer, and that is the introduction of Z-Moves. Now, Z-Moves are a new element that has been introduced into Pokemon battles in Pokemon Sun and Moon, and Z-Moves are powerful moves that can only be used once during battle. The explosive force of a Z-Move is the result of the trainer and the Pokemon releasing their full power together, and apparently this only happens when, quote-unquote, their wishes resonate with each other. It is, however, worth mentioning that all Pokemon are capable of using Z-Moves in battle. But to use a Z-Move, there are 2 key items required. You need a Z-Ring and a Z-Crystal. The Z-Ring goes on the trainer's arm, and the Z-Crystals are set into that, and if a Pokemon holds the same variety of Z-Crystal as its trainer, then the two will be able to resonate with one another. Also, something that was not shown during the trailer, but was announced in the press release, is that there will also be a physical Z-Ring that players can buy. Tomy International, the toy company, are actually producing a Z-Ring that you can actually buy, and it syncs up with your game. So if you as a player use a Z move in Pokemon Sun and Moon, then your real life Z-Ring will light up, it will vibrate, and it plays sounds to go along with the video and sound of the game, which is kind of cool. I don't really buy those kind of toys, but you know what, I might just have to do it for Pokemon Sun and Moon, so that's cool. And of course you can see a selection of some of these Z moves in the background, and they just look absolutely insane. The one from Pikachu just looks like something out of like Naruto or Dragon Ball Z, and then the one from Litten just looks like he's just gone and straight nuked the enemy. That's just overkill. It is definitely one of those things that I would liken to, say, a Super or Ultra in Street Fighter. So yeah, I am super looking forward to seeing these, and I'm also super looking forward to seeing these for every single Pokemon. If these are available for all the Pokemon, and this is just a small selection, then yeah, I can imagine some of those being pretty crazy. Especially if you use them with, say, like a legendary Pokemon, those are probably going to be off the rails. However, moving on from there, speaking about a couple more things. First up is this notion of Poké-Ride. Now, if you played any manner of Pokemon games in the past, then you will of course be familiar with HMs like Fly, Surf, Cut, etc. But Poké-Ride in the Alola region, certain Pokemon help people reach places that are not accessible using human strength alone. And it's said that this practice of travelling on a ride Pokemon is typical of the culture in the Alola region, where humans and Pokemon are closely bound together. However, in these situations, these Pokemon don't actually join the player's team, but they can instead just be called upon any time for help. So as you can see in the trailer, there is of course the option to ride the back of a Tauros and just like smash through some rocks, ride on this horse Pokemon, and of course cross some uneven terrain. There's a rideable Sharpedo, which looks like you can not only use it to surf across water, but also smash rocks as you're going. And quite possibly the one that I'm most excited about, just because it's one of my favourite Pokemon, a Charizard that you can fly on the back of. So I'm not entirely sure whether this is going to replace the notion of HMs. If it does, then I wouldn't mind, because truth be told, you often kind of get to that point in Pokemon where you end up just setting up like a slave Pokemon that you just throw a load of HMs on, you use it to get around the world, and then you kind of put it in your box when you go and do serious battles. So if you can instead have ride Pokemon that you can just call on when you need to smash a rock, fly across something, surf across something, then it will definitely free up your Pokemon moveset and mean you don't actually have to give up a slot, or a potentially important slot, for an HM attack. So definitely excited to sort of see how that pans out, and also see if there are some more Pokemon that you can ride on as well, because while that selection is cool, if there are some other ones as well, then yeah, I am definitely down for that. So, with that out of the way, there is one more thing to talk about, and that is new and returning Pokemon. Now, the returning Pokemon is actually one of the really interesting things, because as you guys know, if you played Pokemon games again in the past, then typically when a new Pokemon game comes out, there are still some older Pokemon that make their way back. However, this time round, while they are doing that, there's actually a twist. See, it says in the information that some Pokemon have adapted to the distinctive microclimates of the Alola region, and they've taken on different forms that they have in other regions. So these Pokemon are called regional variants, and when they take root in Alola, they live like native Pokemon. And these regional variant Pokemon have different appearances, and sometimes even different types, which means their way of living can also differ from the forms that were previously known. Examples of this are the Alolan Executor, which is Grass Dragon type, and unlike other Executors, the Alolan Executor has a fourth head, which is on its tail, and also this really, really long neck. But the fourth head is said to control the tail independently, and it can take on opponents to the rear that can't be reached by the main head's attacks. You then have the Alolan Vulpix and the Alolan Ninetales. Both of these are Ice type, but the Ninetales is Ice and Fairy. And the reason behind the change is it said that Vulpix came to the Alola region with other humans, but it moved to the Snowy Mountains to avoid the normal habitats of other Pokemon, and thus it ended up taking this form. However, one of the ones that I'm super excited about, because I'm also a massive fan of Sandshrew and Sandslash, you have the Alolan Sandshrew and the Alolan Sandslash, and these are Ice Steel types. So instead you have this kind of frozen looking Sandshrew, this frozen looking Sandslash, and Sandshrew again have historically lived in the desert areas, but frequent eruptions of nearby volcanoes apparently drove them to abandon the desert and migrate to the Snowy Mountains, where they took on this form. So of course if you look at the Alola map and you see the Snowy Island, I imagine that's where you'll find this new Sandshrew, as opposed to in the past you would normally go to a desert if you were looking for it. Then, moving over to some of the newer Pokemon, you have Oricorio, which is a dancing type Pokemon. Basically it changes its form by sipping the nectar of certain flowers. And since it has 4 different forms, which is the same number of Alola or the natural Alola islands, then it would also seem that the different Oricorio live in each of these islands. You have Bale style, which is fire flying. You then have Pom Pom style, electric flying, Power style, which is psychic flying, and Sensu style, which is ghost flying. You then have Minior, which is a rock flying type. This one actually really interests me. Minior are said to have formed in the stratosphere, and they live by absorbing the detritus around them, and when they've consumed a large quantity of particles, their bodies become heavy, they fall towards the planet's surface. However, after taking a fair bit of damage, Minior also can lose their shell, and they have a soft core within, and of course you can see here, there are different colour cores. I don't know whether they count as different entries in the Pokédex, or whether they are literally just a few different versions, but either way, that's kind of cool. You then have Gumshoes, which is the evolution of Yungoos, and then you have Fromantis, Lurantis, and Mudbray. Now, that's pretty much it for the time being. There's of course a lot of stuff to take in the trailer. I do of course encourage you guys to go and click on the trailer in the description box down below so you can see it without me talking over the top, and you can kind of enjoy all of the sound and everything like that. But there is so much cool stuff. I am definitely super excited about this. I know some people have been a little bit despondent with some of the new Pokemon designs, but this trailer got me so hyped. Those new Z moves are really, really cool. Also, I do like the clothes that you wear when you're using the Pokemon ride stuff, so I don't know whether you'll be able to wear that all the time or whether that's exclusively for when you're riding, but either way, loads of cool things. Z moves, Poke Ride, Island Trials, Captains, Kahunas, new Pokemon, returning Pokemon. Yeah, there's a lot. Definitely let me know what you guys think in the comments down below if you did enjoy this video. Don't forget to hit that like button, super appreciated. Let me know what your favourite part of the trailer was as well, and also if there's anything particular you guys are looking forward to. But thanks for watching, take it easy, catch you next time, peace out.